Okay. Wonderful. Great. Well, Cara, I'm Tracy Gilchrist. I'm with The Advocate. And again, thank you for chatting with me. And also congratulations on
Thank you.
sex. It's so great.
Yeah, I'm very excited for everyone to see it on Valentine's Day, which of all days, which is perfect.
Yes, wonderful. All kinds of folks will need to see it. And I wonder if you would start first by talking a little bit about kind of generally why you wanted to be a part of a series like this that touches on sex and gender for, people who aren't necessarily in the mix all the time.
Yeah, I think for me, I wanted this so much when I was younger. I wish I'd had it. I wish there'd been the kind of spokesmanship or advocacy or conversation around all these subjects. That led to me, and I know a lot of people my age or younger or older, to just feeling very alone and not feeling like they were heard or could learn and educate themselves as well as being entertained. So doing it, it was a journey for myself as well. Like selfishly, I learned so much about things I thought I knew about myself, but also about the world. My drive is about connection and learning things from others and seeing how other people live. So that for me was one of the main driving points.
Great. Well, thank you. And you are incredibly vulnerable and open in this series, as well as funny and full of energy. But something that is kind of hard to hear is that you are working through so much shame, and a lot of queer people can relate to that. But I wonder, you talk quite a bit about that, especially in the first episode. And I wonder, now that the series has wrapped and there's been a little time in between, would you talk a little bit about how the series helped you in your journey to kind of shed some of that shame?
Yeah, I think what this show did is it brought back a lot of memories of shame. I don't know how much necessarily it's new or something that was still residing much within me. It just reminded how sad I had been and probably how I never processed it properly. It wasn't, I kind of left it. I never really went through it. I just kind of was like, oh, I'll always feel like this, and left it to kind of go. Like swept it under the rug almost. Instead, I decided to really celebrate queerness, celebrate everyone, see people who are proud, who really just inspired me in the way they live their lives. And I think, I don't know, I would advocate for queerness, but I just don't think I really ever enjoyed it as much. Obviously I did in some ways, but there were still parts of me where I'd still, yeah, it was like therapy, honestly. It was just so helpful. And especially to speak to other people who have gone through the same thing. I think that's one thing I never really had as a kid, is just to talk to people, to have a community, to connect with others and band together almost.
Yeah, well, thank you. And one of the things that you talk about in the first episode is wanting to be more of an advocate or an activist and get out there and really stand up for people. But I would argue, as a viewer, as a person who grew up and came out at a time when there was nobody in the media who was out, that you've been actually quite integral to probably a lot of people's coming out or coming into themselves. And I wonder, would you just kind of say a few words about what that means to you, that perhaps you have been that for someone?
And I love that, and I appreciate that, and I know that I've had a couple of fans and people say to me that I just always felt like I could have done more, only because I felt that honestly I was telling people to live an honest life and to accept themselves and love themselves when I don't think I fully did yet. So it kind of felt not disingenuous, because I really wanted that for other people, but there was a lot of things where I wanted other people to be happy and to accept themselves and love themselves, but not do it. So that's kind of more what I meant. Yeah, I just, again, like things about not going to Pride or I don't know, there was still just parts of me I hadn't unearthed, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, it's a journey.
It is, yes. But no, and also just to honor like people who came before. There was just the reason why I was able to kind of stand up proudly, even though I had shame. Just kind of be like, I love the person I love, or this is how I feel. That was because of everyone who come before and had faced that battle far harder. So in that, I'm so thankful.
Right. Well, again, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to touch on, in the second episode, which is all about orgasms, you really get yourself into some situations that are
I was
Very
going to say sticky, but that didn't feel right.
well, I mean, correct, I'm sure. Um, yes, you masturbate for a study. You, I don't know if it's a study or for science.
Yeah.
And then in a group with other people, and then at later in the episode, attend a sex party for women, and or primarily women. And these are all incredibly vulnerable things to do. And I wonder, in going
Just
through
another Sunday. No, very vulnerable.
you're
Not
like,
normal.
um, I wonder, did you surprise yourself with, your reaction to being in any, not even necessarily in that episode, but any particular situation in the series? Was there something where you kind of surprised yourself in the way that you reacted or the way that it resonated for you later?
I was just so surprised about how vulnerable I became and how much everything brought up so many emotions.
Yeah.
Again, as I said, in terms of memory, but how much, I felt so much gratitude and so much pride in people. And yeah, I'm a lot more courageous than I give myself credit for. I mean, especially when they were saying, you'll find out when there's something to do with like, oh, I can find out more about myself, or that was something I was so, they were like, are you comfortable sticking a diode in your vagina and measuring, what turn you on in terms of porn? And I was like, yeah, 100%. That was always like a broach of a question, like, you probably aren't going to want to do this. And I was like, 100% I want to do that. That sounds so fascinating to me. So that stuff I found really easy, weirdly. Seeing what happens to my blood when I have an orgasm. I was fascinated by. It was the hardest part for me was just kind of being myself on camera, but also hearing how much struggle people have gone through depending on different places. Yeah, it's that, like the dervish in Berlin, like again with love without borders. It's just like having to not be accepted from where you're from in the country you are, and your family, and just having to leave that place and to be who you are. Like that is the most courageous, incredible thing I've ever heard. And I grew up in somewhere that's even more acceptable, and I found that so difficult. So just hearing these stories broke my heart, but seeing the strength really and showing that made me so happy, especially if there are people that can watch it and go, wow, that's the situation I'm in and I can do something about it.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, you've also in the past, and you've talked about kind of having internalized homophobia and all of that, and then now talking about kind of not having had a community. Would you talk a bit about now meeting more queer people and kind of mixing it up with different kinds of queer people around the world? What does that do for that internalized homophobia, having that community?
Oh, I realized that it's just a narrative and a story that I was told. It wasn't my narrative. It was just a product of my surroundings. And I think realizing that those voices sometimes, that the hateful, the inner critic, because I didn't have it towards anyone else. It was just towards me. So it was realizing that those narratives are not my own was so powerful for me, because I didn't feel them towards anyone else. So I was like, oh wow, this is just a way I used to shame myself, and it's not real. I can decide to not.
Yeah, exactly. And then, the third episode is about gender. And again, you've spoken quite eloquently about being gender fluid and kind of on a journey there. And, having gone through that episode, you said that it's kind of an ongoing investigation. And so reflecting on it, what do you think you took away from that, those discussions?
I think more so when I got out of it, I realized that I am a woman. I am, that is what I am, but I play within that. I think that the binary of gender and that boys do this and girls do this is the dangerous part, because I didn't like doing what girls usually do. But that's only, and like, so the way that maybe when I was younger, I dressed like a boy or cut my hair like a boy was only because I just wanted the same opportunities that boys had. I just want to be treated like people are. I don't want to feel like a second class citizen. Like, I don't like that. So that was kind of more learning that that's what it was, because it was confusing. Again, not feeling like I had some sort of lack of identity within my job. It was confusing because I couldn't figure out who I really was, but that was deeper than gender, I think. Because I'm very proud to be a woman, especially when I realized how much like my vulnerability and like my as a woman being very sensitive, that is such a power to me. Like I love that part, but I think it just took a long time to build strength within that.
Great, great. Well, thank you. And uh, something else that I notice about you and your kind of life and your interviews in this series, you're really unabashed about talking about how you love sex with women, which is really new because for so long there's an idea that, you know, women can't have sex with each other. It's just, you know, all braiding each other's hair and painting each other's toenails. So to hear somebody really speak openly about like, no, it's a lot more than that. It's important for women loving women and their identities, our identities. And would you speak a little bit about being so unabashed about that?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a lot where I think in, especially when I was younger, you know, a lot of my friends who maybe not necessarily like putting a lot of labels on things, I think is dangerous, because there are a lot of my friends who, again, men weren't educated, or boys weren't educated, didn't know what they were doing. So girls would explore with each other and explore with their own and each other's bodies. And I don't think that is a bad thing. I think that's healthy. I don't, you know, it's a safe place to do it. And especially if you don't know and you don't know how to pleasure yourself, like it is something, well, I know it sounds weird, you do with friends. I'm not saying like, you know, go and try, but like it's something where I felt like a lot of my friends were able to do that or not, you know, but it didn't mean that you were gay. And I think it would scare a lot of like, oh, but I'm not gay, you know, but that's okay. You're allowed to do it, you know, to give people some sort of crisis after doing so. So like, it's just something where it's a safe place. And I think, especially with, I don't know, my generation and growing up, then at that time, it was like a lot of, you know, pushing down girls' heads, doing things that were just like trying to stick the like trying to like put, you know, hands in pants too early or when people are sleeping. There was just a lot of fear and yeah, not safe, like unsafe situations where people will get into. So I'm just glad that I think I do love having sex with women, and I'm very happy to say that.
Well, thank you. I do have to wrap. Thank you for your time, Cara, and congratulations on the show.
I'm so proud. So thank you. I really hope this starts people having conversations that may be uncomfortable. So
yeah, it's important, especially now with politicians trying to raise.
Uncomfortable, it's right.
Yes.
Conversation, no.
That's right. That's right. Get uncomfortable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye.
Thanks all.